How's everybody doing? It's great to be here. Very, very pumped about this. In terms of firsts, Greg, I never thought I'd be introducing you inside your own church. That's really, really weird. Just a weird feeling. I was a missionary in the Middle East about 25 years. Anita and I and our children, 4 children, and met Greg first online, discussion, a lot of what brought us here tonight, and got to talking, and my daughter was here locally at school, and that's where, on a visit to her college, I think maybe 9 months ahead of time I had to schedule a 5-minute luncheon appointment with him, so it does take a long time, but I don't want to just read the bio there. You can read that on the back of your program. I mean, degrees in philosophy and theology, started out here at U of M, and then your MDiv at Yale, I think, and then your PhD at Princeton. You can read that, taught at Bethel University as well, still teaches, and pastor here at Woodland. Let me tell you some things you don't know about Greg, maybe. He thinks he's a drummer, right? No, Chip told me to say that. He thinks he's a dancer. I know I'm the only man in the room that's danced with Greg Boyd at a fundraiser for Haiti. We did some salsa. You don't want to see it. It wasn't pretty. So I just love him deeply, and I'll tell you this. It was always my hunch that the head and the heart belonged together, like not just in a struggling relationship, but really, really on fire and welded together and working together. And I think Greg was the first person I ever met that I actually saw the two of them really together, working, pistons, just going at it. And I said, this is possible, to love God with your mind and have your heart and your passion, all of it in. And I'll say this, I never walk away from a conversation with Greg, even if it's 3 to 5 minutes or sitting on the back porch for hours, and we've done that too. I never leave a conversation where I'm not challenged in what I believe. We don't always agree, a lot of times do, but even when we don't, I'm better at thinking through my position, better at believing what I believe, because I came up against Greg. And just a great, great influence in my own life. So we need people like that, amen? Need people just to challenge us, to push us off the map, to get us to step off the map and maybe think and do and try and challenge ourselves in ways we never have. And when I think about people who do that in my life, Greg's right at the top of the list, and I'm sure he is in our lives too. So Greg, bring it on. We love you, and looking forward to what you're going to share tonight.
I'm really so blessed, honored to be here and be part of this. It's so cool just seeing folks come together. A lot of you I know via Twitter, or a few through email or Skype or things of that sort. And it's just so interesting when you translate from Twitter or Skype to reality. You know, it's like, well, David, you know, you look a little different than you did on Skype. And I walked in, and Jessica was there greeting me, and I see her, but it looks kind of familiar, but I think maybe she's just a person at Woodland Hills Church or whatever. But it was later on, all of a sudden I look over, like, that's Jessica Kelly. And I've been wanting to meet her for months, and so we went over and give her a hug. And it's just cool how the world of the internet just kind of brings us all together. And there's so many old friends here, and Alan, and just folks that go back a long ways, and some of you I haven't even met yet for the first time, but I'm looking forward to doing that. I appreciate you all coming and being a part of this first, as Tom Ord says. Really appreciate the folks that have worked very hard, Tom Ord and T.C. Moore and Tom Belt, and the folks on the Renew side, especially Marcia, has just been knocking. Give them all a pat on the back when you see them. They really deserve it. To make this happen, it's an important thing. And thanks to Woodland Hills Church for opening this up to us. Appreciate that a lot as well. I really think it's time for this to happen. This is a conference whose time has come. We are just a lot of things are converging And we're really hoping, depending on how this conference goes, how you feel it went, that this is the first of hopefully an annual thing that will be going on as time goes on. It's hard to believe, but it's approaching 20 years since The Openness of God was published. Isn't that right? 1994? So it's approaching 20 years. Unbelievable. And many folks see that as the kind of the inauguration of the modern openness movement among evangelicals. It certainly isn't as we'll see here in a moment, the first time Christians have held the open view. But because of who was in that book and because of the political way it was situated, it got open theism on the radar screen of evangelicals really for the first time. And so that is sort of seen by many, at least, as the inauguration of the contemporary openness movement among evangelicals. And there were some wonderful, wild, crazy, stormy battles in the years immediately following that book. I'll say a little bit more about that later on. But now things have simmered down a little bit. It's simmering. And my sense is that the openness movement continues to grow, but it's growing pretty much off everyone's radar screen. It's under the radar screen of the Guardians. You know the Guardians of Truth and Righteousness. They were the ones who raised up and tried to squash this, as they saw it, new heresy when that book first came out. And for about a decade, the Guardians really worked hard to try to get it ruled out of bounds of any kind of consideration for to fall in the category of evangelical. But that's kind of simmered down now. And I still get a lot of feedback, reports of people who have embraced it and the change that it's made and things of that sort. But it's just not causing a war right now. And so it's a good time, it seems like the right time, to call folks together and kind of regroup and then ask the question, and this is really what this conference is all about. How do we take it to the next level? Now what? Let's start talking with one another, dialoguing with one another, challenging one another, thinking through this. How do we begin to form this idea of the open view of the future? How do we form it into a movement, and something that's more identifiable as a movement? I think the time is right for that, for folks who advocate this position, to regroup and to begin to ask, okay, now what? I really believe that this open view of the future is part of a larger movement that's going on. Something that I've become aware of in the last 8 years or so. The reality is that the religion of Christendom is dying. That this is the religion that was birthed in the 4th and 5th century when Constantine threw a lot of power at the church, and the church unfortunately accepted it as being a gift from God. This is the birth of the church triumphant, militant and triumphant, the church that thought its job was to take over the planet in Jesus' name and to use the sword if necessary. And that conquest religion has been really dying for about 200 years. And it's now, I think, breathing its last breath here in America, which is really that last stronghold, where folks still have this idea that we're going to conquer the country, take the country back for God. Other places have given up on that. In Switzerland, for example, they don't think that way anymore in Switzerland, do they? I've got 2 friends here from Switzerland. Say hi to my friends. Manuel, Andreas. Staying at my house, great guys. Manuel's doing his dissertation on open theism. But all throughout Europe, they don't think this way anymore. Only in America do folks still talk like this. But I think it's the roar of a lion on its last leg, on its last breath. And so it's dying all over the place. And out of the rubble of Christendom, this religion, once mighty, ferocious religion, the religion of the Crusades and the Inquisition and the conquest of America, out of the rubble of this is rising a revolution of folks who get that that religion doesn't hardly resemble the kingdom that Jesus came to inaugurate in this world. That religion, militant, triumphant, it barely resembles at all the meek and humble and self-sacrificial movement that Jesus inaugurated and intended with his life and his death. Out of the rubble of Christendom is rising folks who are captivated by a beautiful vision of a God who looks like Jesus dying on the cross for his enemies, praying for their forgiveness with his last breath. And there's a rising tribe of folks who get that the kingdom is to look like Jesus dying on a cross for his enemies, praying for their forgiveness with his last breath. There's a tribe of folks rising up all over the globe. I'm seeing it, individuals and groups that really understand that it was never our job to conquer the world. It was our job to love and serve the world. And you don't force people into submission to God. Maybe that's how it works in Islam, but in Christianity, we have a God who died on a cross. His very definition is revealed on the cross. And so you cross-love people into the kingdom by serving them. And I see the open view as being part of that larger movement. Not that everyone in that movement is going to be an open theist, but this is one aspect of this new, very beautiful, rising revolution. Because the God of Christendom was a God that was always too insecure to share power with others. But open theism offers people a view of God who is confident enough and bold enough to risk giving freedom to his creatures, humans, and to angels. The God of Christendom was a God who needed to control everything in order to be assured of victory. But open theism offers people a God who is assured of victory because he trusts his character and the ability of love to draw people. In Christendom, God had to face an exhaustively settled future, one single exhaustively settled future, in order to be able to promise that he could bring good out of evil. But open theism offers people a God who is infinitely wise and who can promise to bring good out of all evil, even though God faces a future of manifold possibilities. This is a God who doesn't need to reduce everything down to one storyline in order to feel confident that he's in control. This is a God who's so infinitely wise. He's as much in control, looking at virtually infinite number of possible futures, as he would be if he was facing just one. This is the God who resembles, whereas the God of Christendom looked like a sword-carrying Caesar. This is a picture of God who looks more like a cross-carrying Jesus. And so I see the open view of God as being part of this rising revolution. And I believe that we are on the cusp of a new reformation. I think a lot of people are sensing that. It's in the air. And it's very, very exciting. God's doing a new thing, pouring out new wine. And it's blowing apart old wineskins.